Hey all, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Glenn Weldon, filling in for Andrew Limbong this week. In 2022, a young Kurdish woman named Gina Amini died in Tehran after being arrested and severely beaten for not adhering to Iran's dress code. On her tombstone, her father wrote, "Dear Gina, you will not die. Your name will become a symbol," which is precisely what happened as mass protests erupted across the country, demonstrations led mostly by young women. Journalists Fatemeh Jamalpour and Nilo Tabrizi have documented that uprising in For the Sun After Long Nights, the story of Iran's women-led uprising. Jamalpour spoke to Here and Now host Jane Clayson about the protests and the legacy Gina Amini's death leaves. Here's Jane.
This message comes from Capital One Commercial Bank. Your business requires commercial banking solutions that prioritize your long-term success. With Capital One, get a full suite of financial products and services tailored to meet your needs today and goals for tomorrow. Learn more at CapitalOne.com/commercial. Member FDIC.
This message comes from Progressive Insurance and the Name Your Price tool. It helps you find car insurance options in your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
3 years ago this month, a 22-year-old Kurdish woman named Mahsa Gina Amini died after being severely beaten by Iran's morality police. She'd been arrested for not following the Islamic Republic's dress code. Her death sparked the Woman Life Freedom Movement, one of the largest uprisings in Iran in decades. It's estimated that at least 2 million people took to the streets. Officials responded with internet restrictions and mass arrests. A number of protesters were killed. Journalist Fatemeh Jamalpour was in Iran during the uprising. She was in contact with another journalist, Washington Post investigative reporter Nilo Tabrizi, who was based outside Iran but was following events closely. Together, they've written For the Sun After Long Nights, which has just been longlisted for the National Book Award. And Fatemeh Jamalpour joins us now. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
You had been working in London for BBC Persia, but you had returned to Iran, and you were there as the protests began after Amini died. You described walking around Tehran. What was that like?
It was just witnessing people courage to be in the street and protest. Each of the walls were covered with graffiti and protest slogans. Old women, men were in the street protesting, especially young women and LGBTQ people. And it was like Gina's death brought all those protesters to the street. Despite, being hit by tear gas, despite being shot by security forces, they just sacrificed their life, the only things that they have for a free Iran.
You yourself had been threatened with jail by the Iranian government officials. You'd been brought in for interrogation as these protests were going on. You were shot by rubber bullets by the Iran Revolutionary Guard. Can you talk about what those interrogations were like?
I went through 16 interrogations with the Ministry of Intelligence Security Forces. And for me, it was like facing the whole ideological core of the regime. In one session, my female interrogator told me, first you say optional hijab, then you want to be naked in the street, then you demanded sexual revolution. And I was like, you are delusional. We only want our agency, our control over our bodies. And it's a basic human right. But it was tough because there was no logic there. And they always threatening me to 5 years of prison. I think I use it as an opportunity to write down the interrogation session because I realize it's the way that I can represent the ideological core of the regime, how they think, how they respond, how they just undermine women's rights in the name of Islam Sharia rule.
You write a lot in the book about what it's like to be a woman in Iran. You say, as a child, I did not have the language to understand it, but the women in my life and family were sharing experiences of child marriage, forced marriage, domestic violence, and worst of all, lives without love. And because these had been normalized in our culture and community, it would have taken some time for me to understand that these women's lives were far from ordinary, or at least should have been. Talk about the women of your generation and how they dealt with this treatment, this way of life in Iran.
Yeah, my generation grew up in the post-revolutionary ideological society where everything were banned for women. Entering a stadium were banned. Listening to pop music were banned. They checked that we didn't even remove a single hair from our upper lip or eyebrow, The restriction was huge. And I think it was the way that my generation grew up to be rebellion and demanding, being free from this gender apartheid society. But I think what's that happening is the generation change. So my generation trying to do reform, attending the election, demanding for our vote. But this generation decided to live the life that they want and pay for these expenses.
So talk more about that for this younger generation, Gen Z, and specifically young Iranian women. You write, my generation used to hide their faces from security cameras, but this new generation humiliates them by showing victory signs to their faces. Talk about that change and what you witnessed young women doing.
In this second or third day of protest, we carry our scarf over our shoulder. And I arrived to the security checkpoint and I wanted to put my scarf on my head because I was scared. Then I saw all these young teenage students that walked across the security forces without any scarf. Then I got ashamed and I put my scarf in my bag and I said I continue without hijab. And for me, it was just about, contagious courage of these young women. They made me more brave. They made me better version of myself during the protest. And as I described one time, the security forces, fired many tear gas, and my generation was, fleeing and escaping. But these young people were walking through the tear gas smoke. It was so inspiring for me. As I said, I learned to have my agency over my body.
You described the rebellion of young schoolgirls across the country, scenes of these young girls booing the paramilitary unit of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. I mean, talk about bravery and wanting freedom so badly.
One day my niece arrived. She was a normal 15 years old student. And she was like, Auntie, we took the founder of Islamic Republic, Khamenei and Khomeini photo from the wall. We turned them apart. We jumped over them. We took off our scarf in the school. And I was like, you did that? And then I saw all those videos of this young student that they headed to protest every day after school, just 13 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old. Then the regime started to poisoning the student girl with gas. And it was their response to just suppress this innocent, teenager female student. But I think the result of this movement, despite all of this repression, is long-lasting.
Yeah. We should say you did not write this book alone, and it's so interesting how you worked with Nilo Tabrizi, the Washington Post investigative reporter. Talk about that relationship, how you came to build trust and share information when you were fully aware that the government would be trying to listen into your conversations.
Nilo and I met each other once in 2017. I went to New York Times office asking them, do you want a correspondent in Tehran, and I met Nilo there. I started to covering the protest since 2019. I was anonymous. Nilo was writing with her byline, and our relationship formed through there. So every time the protest happened, we were talking together. We share many poems, every interesting video or anything that we saw. I trying to be a window to my sister, to inside Iran.
So you were inside of Iran and Nilo was outside of Iran, sort of feeding you information. How are you working together to create this fuller picture?
So we always communicated through Signal and, the app who are secure from being monitored by security forces. My chat always deleted everything. So in just writing and sending them to Nilo. So I didn't have my notes for the book until I left Iran. Only Nilo had my notes. It was how much I trusted her and we worked together.
When you got the contract for this book, a lawyer told you that just the first 3 pages would bring you charges of blasphemy against Islam, and publishing it could put you in prison for the rest of your life if you stayed in Iran. So you made the choice to leave. And I just wonder how difficult that decision was for you.
Oh, it was so hard. I had to leave all of my life, my family, my friends, everything behind to just simply tell these stories. But I decided that it was my responsibility and my sacrification. As my friends are in prison for a long time, I should sacrifice my life and being an exile to tell their stories too. And when I'm sad, most of the time, I don't have anyone to put my head on their shoulder. When I'm crying, I don't have anyone to give me a glass of water. I lost all of this. I think it's worth it to tell the stories of my people. But I'm sure that the regime change gonna happen soon and late. From my eyes, each day that each Iranian woman risks their life to walk in the public without hijab is a revolution itself.
So the movement is ongoing. It's not over.
Yep, it's ongoing, and the proof of this ongoing movement is the high number of the women who work in the public without hijab and with optional coverage. They're just changing, this restriction and boundaries.
With a lot of bravery, a lot of courage.
Exactly. With their bravery and courage, it's the only weapon they have.
Fatemeh Jamalpour and Nilo Tabrizi are the co-authors of the new book about the 2022 Iranian uprising, For the Sun After Long Nights. Fatemeh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Online. Is your child asking questions on their homework you don't feel equipped to answer? IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid, no matter the age or personality. One subscription gets you everything. One site for all the kids in your home, pre-K to 12th grade. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And NPR listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/NPR.
This message comes from NPR sponsor 1Password. Protect your digital life with 1Password. If you're tired of family members constantly texting you for the passwords to streaming services, 1Password lets you securely share or remove access to logins. Access from any device, anytime. 1Password lets you securely switch between iPhone, Android, Mac, and PC with convenient features like autofill for quick sign-ins. Right now, get a free 2-week trial for you and your family at 1password.com/NPR. This message is sponsored by DSW, the birthplace of the humble brag. Full of all kinds of shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. And when there are never-ending options for every style, mood, occasion, and budget, there is unlimited freedom to play. And that's something to brag about. So go ahead, stock up on fresh sneakers from your favorite brands, or try those boots you always secretly knew you could pull off. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW, let them surprise you.